Cannibalism. Could you eat a whole human being? With the help of a doctor, a scientist and a chef, I set out to see if it's possible. Cannibalism, Part 5. Bones. For most serial killers, the human skeleton is either something to defile or to turn into a souvenir. But for the most unimaginative, who only eat the finest cuts of meat, they could be missing a real treat. Although a cannibal, Jeffrey Dahmer wasted a huge amount of time rinsing the bones, stripping the protein-rich meat, soaking them in bleach, and painting these trophies like a twisted toddler at a sadistic playgroup. Every other bone he smashed with a hammer and disposed of, but he never ate them. Survival experts know how nutritious and tasty bones can be. In 1820, whaling ship the Essex was sunken by a sperm whale in the Pacific. Drifting for 90 days, of the 17-man crew, only 5 survived, having placed their dead compatriots' leg bones to their lips and sucked out the life-giving marrow bone. Admit it, bones? They're not exactly a staple of our everyday diet or the choicest parts which we hunger for. Being 14% of our body mass, made of protein, collagen, calcium, and phosphorus, a skeleton gives our body its shape, a framework for the muscle structure, and it protects our most delicate of organs. Minerals make the bone strong. Collagen gives it its flexibility, and every atom is replaced every 10 years. Its hard outer shell is called the periosteum. Underneath are the blood vessels and the lymphatics which carry its nutrients. And the muscles, ligaments and tendons attach to the periosteum. Of the 206 bones in the human skeleton, 126 are appendicular bones, such as arms, legs and hips. 80 are axial bones, the skull, vertebrae and ribs. And the only exposed part of the skeleton is the teeth. Many anthropologists believe that during the Paleolithic era, tool-making hominids ate bone marrow as its rich source of protein, comprising fats, acids, as well as red and white blood cells and platelets. Cooked properly, at no lower than 140 degrees Fahrenheit for 8 to 10 hours, depending on its weight and density, it has a slightly sweet, savoury, full-bodied flavour. Served in high-end restaurants, a cow femur is boiled, roasted, sliced, and the jelly-like marrow is served on toast with sea salt. We have no qualms about consuming animal bones. And yet with the world's population exploding and 167,000 people dying every day, it's only fear, the law, but mostly religion, which stops us consuming a valuable and untapped source of 2 million kilos of highly nourishing human bone marrow every day. Based on the study of Paleolithic cannibals, our average UK male has 11.7 kilos or 25.7 pounds of bone, the equivalent of 2 bowling balls, 2 gallons of paint or 4 house bricks, which I'll admit sounds delicious. But providing 28,700 calories, Steve's juicy marrow bone could keep a cannibal alive for 11.5 days. In 1991, Omaima Nelson murdered, castrated, skinned and cannibalized her abusive husband Bill. Having cooked his head, ate his flesh and deep-fried his hands in boiling oil, it was said that she flayed his torso and roasted his ribs, which she served with a barbecue sauce, only to later deny this. Whether this was true, a lie, or an alibi for an insanity plea is unknown. But with the intercostal muscles on a human's ribs being relatively thin compared to a pig's or a cow's, it's unlikely she enjoyed much meat. Bones are a tasty and nutritious treat, but it comes with several dangers that a cannibal may not be aware of. Any bone needs to be crushed, as the esophagus can't swallow anything bigger than an inch, the width of a 2p coin. As bones tend to shatter, a punctured stomach wall can lead to peritonitis or sepsis. Even a bone that size would take a week to pass through your intestinal tract, longer than fat. And any bone cooked lower than 145 degrees Fahrenheit has a higher risk of dangerous bacteria like E. coli and Salmonella. And more importantly, with roughly a kilo of calcium in the human skeleton, necessary to build and maintain bones, given that exceeding a daily intake of 2.5 grams of calcium a day could result in vomiting, kidney failure, confusion, and ironically brittle bones, it would take 400 days to safely eat Steve's entire skeleton. So serial killers, don't bin, abuse or decorate the bones. Simply scoop out the bone marrow and have a posh meal. Then ground up the outer shell for fertilizer as we do with most animal bones. Or as they did during the Paris famine of 1590, which resulted in almost 50,000 deaths, with a starving populace lacking basic foods like bread. Having eaten every horse, cat and dog in the city, they robbed the graves of the recently deceased, stripped their meat, sucked out the bone marrow, and ground down those empty bones for flour. The bread it made was said to be vile and abominable. But this act of cannibalism was so shocking that it ended the Paris siege. But could you eat a loaf made of your much-loved auntie? If so, what else would you be willing to eat? Join me tomorrow to examine the juiciest part of the human body, the fat.